Hi, everybody. Welcome to Do You Believe on paranormalzone.tv. Hey, thanks everyone for joining me tonight. And for the newcomers, would you please subscribe to my show if you haven't already done so? And please, everybody, give us a like. And guess what? Guess who I have tonight? I'm so excited to have Andrea Perron back. I love her to death. I think this is about the fourth show we've done together. And tonight, we'll do a recap. In case some of you don't know, Andrea Perron is an author, and she's the author of House of Darkness, House of Light. And her book was made into a movie, The Conjuring. Of course, the movie is loosely based on the real story. And so I'm going to the reason I brought Andrea back tonight, because she promised me she would do the show with me. And she's going to talk about the hauntings that continue with the family today. So let's all welcome Andrea. Andrea, my darling, welcome.
Oh, it is so great to be back with you. You know, Noreen, I don't know exactly how to say this, but, I've done, I don't know how many interviews I've done over the last few years. I would venture to guess perhaps thousands. And I don't enjoy doing an interview with anyone more than I do with you. And the reason is because even though we have yet to hug each other, we have yet to meet in person, I feel like I have known you forever and ever. You have single-handedly brought my story to the West Coast. You were the first one to give me a West Coast interview back 3 years ago. And we have formed a fast friendship that feels absolutely eternal, and nobody knows how to worm their way into my psyche the way you do, woman.
And tonight, guess what, everybody? Purple is Andrea's favorite color. I knew that because I've seen her so many times wearing purple, so I knew that. So that's the color tonight, purple for Andrea. So
well, it's a very spiritual color, and I'm a very spiritual woman, so it stands to reason. But it also looks good on me if I wear silver jewelry to go with my quickly silvering hair.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I go for the look, but also it's a very deep, rich. I love all the deep colors, the deep mauves, and even as light as lavender. But anything that has to do around that color just attracts my eye. It pulls me immediately in, and I don't know what it is. Why is it that we have lucky numbers? Why is it that we're attracted to certain colors? Why? What makes us integrally what we are as human beings? How complex we are? How our personalities develop from, a cell? What? I mean, it's all magic. It's all magic. It's miraculous. Life is miraculous.
Oh, yeah, it certainly is. And Andrea, I could listen to you speak all night long. So, honey, you got the floor. So for those who have joined us for the first time and may not know you, and I don't know who wouldn't know you, give them a little bit of background before we move forward into today.
Okay. There was all right, let's go back. In 2007, I was very happily living in Rhode Island, working at Harmony Hill School, a very rewarding job, a difficult job, but I was a counselor, worked with behaviorally disordered adolescent boys. Had done it for close to 10 years. I was just coming into my 10th year and loved my job, and all of a sudden something said, it's time. It's time for you to tell the story. Dredge it up, dig it up from the deepest recesses of your consciousness and start writing it down. And I marked it on the calendar. And I keep all my calendars because, of course, I'm a writer. That means I'm neurotic. And I hoard. And if it's paper and pens, I hoard it. And, God, I hate to throw a pen out even when it has no ink left in it. How sick is that? But, I went through this period where I wrote it down on the calendar. It was August 7th, 2007. And then I went through the 7-year period. And on the day that Volume 3 of the trilogy went live was August 7th, 2014. 7 years to the day. There are 7 people in my family. You know, it just felt holy to me. Now, of course, I turned all my work over in April. I had no way of knowing when the publisher was going to release the book. They didn't tell me until it goes live. So that was in their hands, and in some ways, I think in God's hands. And it told me, it spoke to me directly and said to me directly, you have fulfilled your destiny. This is what you were supposed to do. And, you know, I knew. I've talked to you at length, probably ad nauseum about this over all of our interviews, but I knew even when I was a youngster that someday I would tell this story. And I didn't know in what way I would. Know if it would be... I didn't know what that meant back then. But I knew from the age of 12 when I asked my mother to buy me a journal when there was no money to buy me a journal, and she found it and did it anyway. At the Williams 5 and Dime in North Smithfield, Rhode Island, she found one, and you know, and just kept them coming. And for the 10 years that we lived at the farm, I chronicled many of the events that happened. Not just with myself, but with my sisters, and particularly with my mother. So I was the writer from a very early age. It was my thing. And, you know, until, other than a poem here or there in a, you know, an obscure journal, I never really published anything until, even though I've got reams of writing stored in my closet where most people would have clothes or shoes or something other than, you know, boxes and boxes of writing my life's work. But this was the first thing that I ever attempted to publish. And it was a story that a number of publishers were interested in, but everybody that wanted to write me a check also wanted to own the material and change it as they saw fit. And I could not allow that to happen. So I cut the sweetest deal in publishing history with an independent publisher and went with Author House that has been splendid to me. I can't say enough nice things about this publishing house. And I work very closely with a bunch of people who I've never met in person, but who have worked with me page by page to get these books exactly how I wanted them to be. And, you know, I don't care anymore how they're received, you know, who believes it, who doesn't, what criticisms fly about it. This is different than anything that's ever been put in print anywhere, ever. This is a story that James Wan couldn't believe, the director of The Conjuring, because he had studied everything that the Warrens had ever done and said, I never heard of this story. How do I not know about the Perron family if I have read everything from the Warrens, you know, researched them completely? And it was because my mother told Lorraine Warren that she could not share the story anywhere with anyone.
Interesting.
And it was, you know, more than 30 years after we left the farm that I just decided it was time. Something told me the world was ready. I felt prepared, and I embarked on a whole new life. My life has changed completely since I began that. And you know, if the message behind that, I celebrate the two men that just scaled El Capitan with their hands and fingernails, you know, that just went up the sheer cliff of a mountain because it had been said it couldn't be done, and they did it. And I celebrate them, and I feel a sense of great humility, but also a sense of pride that I was able to get my family's story out there in a truly authentic way. You know, it might not be the greatest work, you know, it's not Shakespeare, but what it is a spiritual journey. It's It's like a long lamentation or a guided meditation. It is, I tell people there's a way to read these books. The best way to read these books is to just completely open yourself up to them and suspend time. If you are able to suspend linear time, then you can really get engrossed in it. But you have to be in the right and proper mindset. The people that delve into this looking for it to be a series of scary stories get way more than they anticipated, get way more than they wanted. So, these books are written for certain people. I tell everybody else, if you want to have the daylight scared out of you, just wait for the abridged version. Just wait for that. Or go watch The Conjuring 6 times, Go have your fiction fix. But, if you really want to know the journey that our family went through and how it fundamentally changed each one of us, then you must read the books. And it's a leap of faith, and not only that, it's downright task. It's 1,500 pages, it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process. And you have to process what you're reading. Many of my readers write to me and say, I'll read 15 or 20 pages, maybe 30, and then I have to put it down. I have to put it down and put it aside and wait several days and let what I just read sink in.
Oh, my God.
And then come back.
So, Andrea, after you left the farmhouse, where did you go?
Georgia. We came down to Georgia. And, that being the title of your show tonight and about other things that have happened since, this is a natural progression. Many people now really have the gist of what happened over the 10 years that we lived in the farmhouse. But it was when we left the farmhouse. That's what I really want to focus on tonight because, many times I've said to you, when you are touched by spirit, it opens a door that you can never, ever close again. You can turn your back on it and pretend that it's not there, that it's not open. But eventually something's going to waltz through to remind you that, yes, it is. And that's how it was with us. It fractured our family to leave the farm. Half of us never wanted to leave it. Half of us never wanted to look back. And so we were never together again as a family under one roof. After we left the farm, we moved to the mountains of North Georgia. And an absolutely beautiful, splendidly gorgeous place. I can't say enough about the natural beauty of North Georgia. But it wasn't home. It wasn't Rhode Island. It wasn't the farm. I was miserable. I didn't stay long.
You didn't?
I never felt like home. I never ever had a sense of home anywhere except the farm in my whole life. Anywhere. That's the only place I've ever lived that I felt like I was absolutely comfortable in my own skin and that was where I belonged. My sense of belonging, my sense of being befriended by the farm from the moment that I laid eyes on it as an 11-year-old fundamentally changed my life. And to be torn away from it, to feel like I had to choose between the farm and my mother's health and well-being, well, of course, there was no choice. Mom told Dad that if they didn't sell the farm, she wasn't going to survive another winter in the house. And she was so steadfast and ardent in her message that he believed her. And they put it on the market, and it languished there for 6 months. Nobody came to look at it. Nobody called. Nothing.
Oh.
Nothing.
So,
and he finally went to the abutting landowner in Massachusetts and cut him a very sweet deal.
Oh, my God.
And to get us out of the house. And, Noreen, I'll tell you, it was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. The people that are going through Volume 3 now, after all the emotional investment that they've made in this story in Volume 1 and Volume 2, Volume 3 has got them by the throats.
Oh.
And it is at once sad and filled with angst, but ultimately it leaves the reader feeling very hopeful for the future and very inspired and uplifted. And that's what I wanted it to do. I wanted it, that it's everything that I hoped that it would be. And I know it doesn't suit everybody. Some people have said that it's just too emotionally hard to read. Too hard to read. It's, I have a degree in English and philosophy. I write in a way that some people say, well, I need a dictionary to read your book. My response to that is, if the worst thing that happens to you all day long is that you have to learn a new word, or just skip over them and see if you still get the gist. But you're missing an opportunity to learn a word that is perfectly placed precisely where it belongs, with exactly the inflection it's supposed to have to enhance the sentence and complete the thought.
Well,
I'm like, what? I thought I was getting scary stories. I'm like, oh, here's a copy of The Conjuring. Oh, God. I see now I've gone off on a tangent. Would you care to rein me in, or would you like me to try to self-discipline?
Oh, no. You got it, honey. It's all yours. The floor is yours. All I want to know is, I know that the last time we talked, you had said that the hauntings affected everyone differently in the family. And I want to know what's happening today.
Oh, God. Well, that's a long story. It started in Volume 3. We thought that when we left the farm behind, even though some of us didn't want to leave, we thought that when we did, that we would leave the haunting behind as well. That the haunting was occurring in the house, in the barn, on the property, that's where all the activity was. There was nothing going on in our lives prior to arriving at the farm, so it would stand to reason that when we left it, we would leave it all behind. But as my mother so adeptly said, we could leave the farm, but the farm will never leave us. And what she meant by that was not only the emotional impact, the educational impact of living for a decade of your life, especially when it's your childhood, the formative years, to have that will leave a permanent impression on the psyche. Yes, of course. But what she also meant was that profound attachments were formed and persist to this day. There was an incident at the farm, and I'm going to give you the gist of this chapter from Volume 3. Not just for your listeners, but for your own edification, because it fits precisely in to what we're discussing tonight.
Okay.
We moved to the farm in June of 1980, away from the farm to a new farm and a relatively new house that had been built in the 70s, and it was 1980. It only had one owner prior to our purchasing it. And it was in the Salacoa Valley on Garland Mountain Road in Cherokee County, Georgia. And we got there in about the third week of June. And it was spectacular, splendid, beautiful, very different from the farm in Harrisville, and yet remarkable in its own right. And the Salacoa River ran right through the property, and it was only 26 acres, and you could see most of it with the naked eye. Waterfalls and just huge rock shoals and lovely ridge line of 200-foot tall pines. Absolutely spectacular. In the morning, the deer would just pop their head up over the mist that lay down low in the valley and greet you when you're having your coffee on the deck. I mean, oh, God, this was great, And it was everything that my mother wanted, and she felt so almost purified by the experience of having the Georgia sun bake the pain out of her body, all the pain that she had experienced up in Rhode Island. It was like she was healing by will from within and by from without, from the elements that she was now in. She was home. She was born and raised in Georgia. She was home. Her family was there, is here in Georgia, and with my mom, as a matter of fact. And I'll tell you something, Noreen. We thought that we had escaped unscathed. We did. My mother had a wicked blowout with the spirits just before we left. Everything seemed to calm down. There was a little activity as we were trying to move out. There was some obstructionism going on in the house to the extent that I would have thought they were Republicans. Oh, I'm so amusing. I'm sorry if I offended anybody out there. I really am, but honest to God, that just was perfect. That fit perfectly. Okay, moving on. I have to tell you, my mother thought she was free and clear. And then one day in early August, and I was standing in the kitchen. I was making a pot of coffee. I remember it precisely because when the phone rang, my mom was we had a huge open kitchen, dining, sitting area. I mean, very modern compared to what we had come from. And I was standing behind the L-shaped bar kitchen area, and the phone rang, and my whole body tensed up. My whole body tensed up. It was almost like I just felt this was bad news. Mm-hmm. And my mom answered the phone, and it was Lorraine Warren. And the last time that she had spoken with Lorraine was in 1974. And it was 1980. And my mom, I mean, this was way before Google days. My mom had no idea how she even found us. But she did. And she asked my mother if she and my father would be amenable to telling the story. Amenable, I should say, to telling the story. And in movie form, in book form, with a ghostwriter, which is an hysterical phrase, and offered my parents a boatload of money, and I mean life-changing money, everything that they really lost on the sale of the farm to get out of it, they would have made up and then some. It would have changed a lot of things. And, the offer was certainly solid, and she even had the writer with her, the ghost writer with her, and was talking to my mom, and Mom, I sat down in the chair next to my mother, and I just listened very carefully to what was being said to her, and I couldn't hear what Lorraine was saying, but I could see from my mother's end of the conversation how she was physically almost drawing up into herself having this conversation. And she left it with, I will talk to Roger about it. And when my father came home, my sisters that were down there showed up. Everybody showed up at the house at once, and we were all going into Atlanta for something that night. And my mother decided to stay home. Everything changed with that phone call. Everything did. And we took off, and, in Georgia, it's hot as hell. Honest to God. Uh-oh. Summer is just brutal.
I know.
And so you don't run the dishwasher or the washing machine or the dryer or anything during the day. You always save those chores for nighttime. And Mom went down into the cellar after we'd all left for the city and went into the laundry room, and my father had to remove a solid oak door to get some antiques through into the master suite downstairs, and had leaned it very carefully, even shimmed it up against the back of the laundry room wall so that we could move some more furniture around and set things up the way they wanted it before they put that door back, because it was so heavy. And as my mother leaned over to put laundry into the washing machine, it came slamming down on her so hard that it almost knocked her out. It dislocated her right shoulder. She was screaming and writhing in pain. There was nobody in the house to help her. Her head had been smashed into the side of the washing machine. It almost knocked her out, and she finally pulled herself out up beside the agitator, and then had to squeeze herself down the front of the machine. She was so hurt she couldn't lift the door off of her. She just had to pull her body out from underneath the weight of it, and went and put her shoulder in the door jamb of the laundry room and had to pop her shoulder back in because she was screaming.
Oh my God.
It was a terrible, terrible injury, and she said there is absolutely no way that door could have budged, let alone come over on top of her with that kind of force. She knew what it meant. She knew where the message came from. She knew why it happened. And when Lorraine called back the next day, my mother said, absolutely not. We have nothing further to discuss. Please don't contact me again.
Wow. Oh my God. So, now what? What's happening now with your mother?
Well, we had a bizarre incident, a very disturbing incident. I was invited out to the filming of The Conjuring out in North Carolina. James Wan didn't want to go anywhere near the original farmhouse. He wanted nothing to do with it. He wouldn't even go look at it as a potential shoot site. And so they had to find another place, and they did in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I was invited out, and the producer, I said to him when he called me, I was thrilled at the invitation, and I said, would you be interested in any of the rest of my family coming? And he said he just about fell out of his chair. He was so excited, and he said, please, any of them that you can get. It will be a wonderful experience. We'll put you up in this great hotel, and you can eat and drink to your heart's desire. Could you all please come? That would be so great. And then they started scurrying on their end to make arrangements to film interviews with us and so on and so forth. This was a big deal. At the last minute, my mother begged off. She would not go. I mean, everything was planned. Everything was planned. I was coming in from Michigan after being up there to do a couple of events. My sister Nancy was coming up from Florida. My father was coming up from Florida. Nancy, Christine, Cindy, April, all coming in from Atlanta. Christine, Cindy, and April all coming in from Atlanta with Mom. And, my mother at the time was, I think, 72 or 73. We don't leave her alone, which, stands to reason. And it was a battle. There was an issue about it, because I said, okay, this forces somebody to stay here with you and not go. And she's like, you go. I will be absolutely fine. You're only going to be gone for 2 days. It's no big deal. And we finally battled it out, and of course Mom won, and we made arrangements for nieces to check in and so on and so forth. And there was an incident. My mother fell in the house and broke her hip while we were in Wilmington on a set doing an interview, a family interview -1. And we had all of our phones turned off. Nobody could reach us. It was a remote location. Only one of 4 of us had a signal on our cell phones. And about 2 hours after we finished the interview, or maybe an hour after, we got the call. Finally, somebody got a text through to us that Mom had fallen and was in the hospital. And so, needless to say, we left right away, but we had a very bizarre supernatural incident occur on the set that day. While we were doing the interview, a rogue wind came through the set. Now, this was a good 5-acre set, including the house, with the river running behind it and the big fake tree where Bathsheba was found hanging. And I looked up when this rogue wind came through, and it started knocking the screens and the booms, the microphones, everything was flying, cameras were flying. I mean, this was a scary wind out of nowhere, and it just kind of cut through the property, and I looked around, and none of the trees on this property were moving. There was no wind anyplace else except on top of us. And I leaned forward and I looked at my sister Christine, who was at the other end of the line, and I looked her straight in the eye and I said, "Bathsheba's curse." And she just nodded knowingly. And it wasn't until 2 hours later that we found out that when that happened is when my mother fell.
Oh my God. Wow.
So we drove for 9 hours straight to get back to Atlanta so that we could walk all 5 of her daughters together into the hospital. And she had just come out of surgery. It was the following afternoon. She was in such bad shape when they got her to the hospital that they had to intubate her, and they wouldn't do the surgery because they didn't think she would survive the anesthesia.
Oh my God.
So, needless to say, it was a tumultuous, very emotional time. And all 5 of her daughters walked into that hospital together. We walked into her room. Her doctor was there, her nurse, 2 of my nieces, and all of her daughters. And my mother, who had just come out of recovery and was still heavily sedated, sat bolt upright in bed, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Bathsheba's curse. I have not felt that presence in more than 30 years. She doesn't want to be exposed."
Oh.
And then she laid back down in the bed and was gone. It was like she was in a coma.
Oh.
She slept straight through until the following morning. And in spite of the fact that we all heard it and we all witnessed it, she has no recollection of it at all.
Wow. Andrea, what about you? Have you experienced paranormal events since you written this book and left the house, the farmhouse?
Well, that covers about 30 years, honey. You don't have a radio show that long. You just don't.
Okay, well, let's narrow it down. How about the scariest incidents?
Okay.
Is that 20 years worth?
Yeah. Well, it's a lifetime worth.
Oh,
it really is a lifetime worth. But there have been some things. Well, I really had it out with Bathsheba, and I knew why she was upset. She didn't do what she was accused of. I really don't believe it. Somebody'd have to prove it to me. And I've been her great defender, as you well know in the book. I've, really covered both sides, the accusations and her being exonerated and all of that, from stem to stern. I covered her story in these 3 books. And somebody would have to prove to me that she murdered that baby for me to believe it.
Okay, will you tell the viewers about that story? About
Bathsheba Sherman, who was born Bathsheba Thayer, Thayer, in 1812, and who died in 1885. When we moved to the farm, local historian, the town historian, Mr. McCutcheon, got to know my mother, and he told my mother, and he was in his late 80s, and he knew Bathsheba Sherman when he was a little boy and knew her reputation. She was brutal with the farmhands, that she starved them, she beat them, that she was, just a vicious, miserable woman. And he would not, when he'd talk about her, he wouldn't even look my mother straight in the eye. He'd lower his eyes. There are still people that live in Burrowville today who, when they're referring to her, say, how is it that they put that? She whose name must not be spoken.
Say that again?
She whose name must not be spoken.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. She was considered, in her time after this incident, which I guess happened in her late teens or early 20s, the information about it was very spotty. This came directly from Mr. McCutcheon, who I call Mr. McEachern in the books, because I didn't have, there was no family for me to contact, and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes that I didn't know by using his name. But I've since been in touch with people who said, yeah, perfectly fine, you could call him, Mr. McCutcheon. And he was a lovely, lovely man. He taught my mom how to make a dowsing rod. He was really a cool old gentleman.
So what was your mom going to do with that dowsing rod?
That's how she found the point for them to drill where we hit the best well water in New England, in the Lost River of New Hampshire. She found it with the dowsing rod that she made from a piece of birch.
Oh my
taught her
God,
how.
that is so awesome. Yeah, that's what they use
Yeah.
dowsing rod. That's
Yeah.
one of the original forms to use the dowsing rod is to find water. Wow. So now, what about the other sisters? Are they experiencing anything, or shortly after you moved out of the farmhouse, were they experiencing anything paranormal?
Cindy has the most active. Well, all of us do. All of us are very in tune. You know, the thing is that we shared space for a long time with a lot of spirits. We all got used to each other. We came to acknowledge one another. That was the value of staying at the farm for 10 full years, because in that amount of time we had a period, there was obviously a huge period of adjustment, but then we learned to coalesce, kind of acquiesce to each other whenever we needed to from either side. There was, a real change of dynamics occurred over the 10 years that we lived at the farm, and it was like being in this incredible classroom where you're learning so much about life and death and the afterlife. And I remember the sense of relief that I felt at 12 years old when I saw my first full body apparition and said, there is something else. There is something beyond our death. Now, I knew at that tender age I had already struggled with issues of life and death. I had already begun, reading about that, actually reading philosophy, Emerson, Thoreau, at that age. And I wanted to know more and wanted to know more. I was seeking out information, trying to find my spiritual self at that tender age. And that's the first thing that made sense to me, is that of course we go on. There's something after this. This isn't a waste. Everything that we do and that we accomplish, and every kiss we share, and all the love that we share in our lives, and all that we learn and bring into the cosmic consciousness through our minds isn't lost. It goes on in some way, shape, or form as an alternate energy. And I don't even know if that's the accurate vernacular to use. But I have a sense of it, having been exposed to what I was, having seen what I did so frequently over the course of that decade.
Can I ask you a question?
And it has continued on. And honest to God, Noreen, I ignored it for years.
Can I ask you a question?
After we left the farm, I ignored it for years.
Look, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So, what if you're telling this to somebody and they say to you, "I'm sorry, I don't believe any of that. Once we're dead, we're dead. We're buried in that ground, and that's the end of that." What would you say to them?
Won't you be surprised?
Come on, tell me.
Yeah, you go ahead and delude yourself all you want to. If that makes you feel comfortable, you go right ahead. I don't try to convince anybody of anything. Everybody's got their own belief system, and they're all entitled to it. And as long as their belief system doesn't insist upon them killing other people, I'm fine with it.
So they will be very much surprised once they pass on as to what happens.
Yeah, well,
okay,
I think all of us will be in a lot of different ways.
What do you think happens?
Really do.
Okay, so what do you think the stages are once we breathe our last breath? What do you think? What stages do you think we go through?
I don't know.
Okay.
Because I haven't had a near-death experience. I have been rescued prior to having a near-death experience. I have had 3 different episodes and incidents in my life where I probably should have passed on and did not.
And what were those, Andrea?
That was what I consider to be, truly believe to be, divine intervention on my part. Something. And I don't know what we worship, but I know we worship something, and I know that there's a reason why we do. Even atheists have faith that there isn't a God. They have their own faith. It's intrinsic to our nature to have some type of belief system, even if that belief system is science, mathematics. That's not just it's a way that the brain is wired. And I think that, I had an incident one time, Noreen. I was really certain that I was going to die. I made my peace. And I was still a very young woman. I was in a huge Chrysler Newport. I loved it. I called it the land yacht. It had room for 9 and luggage. It's like a Catholic deal. It was huge.
Huge, yeah.
Oh, my God. It had the biggest engine ever made in an American car. It was a horse. And honest to God, I had big dogs. I needed a big car. It was a 1975 Chrysler Newport. Look it up on the web. It's killer. And I was driving down Route 195 coming off of Cape Cod. I had gone down to visit my sister Nancy when she lived up there. And I was on my way back to Rhode Island, heading into Providence. And I was probably about 20 miles outside of Providence. I was still across the Massachusetts line, and it started to snow, and the flakes came down the size of quarters or half dollars. They were clumping together. It was wet, heavy Cape Cod snow. And all of a sudden, my windshield wipers failed. They stopped working, and I was traveling at about 50 miles an hour. I had an 18-wheeler in front of me, one to the left, one right directly behind me, and within about 15 to 20 seconds, my windshield was completely covered, and I could not see anything, and I knew that was it for me, that I would be crushed. I hoped that it wouldn't hurt terribly, and that I was going to die.
Oh, my God.
And something got me off that highway.
Oh,
something, I felt a warmth on the top of my hands that I can't explain. I mean, my fingernails had literally impaled my palms. That's how hard I was holding on to the steering wheel of my car. I didn't even feel it when it happened. I didn't see the blood until after. And something put its hands on my hands in that car and gently guided me into the breakdown lane.
All right, so I want to ask you, I know you've had contact with aliens.
I knew you were going to say that. I know you. You wicked, wild, West Coasty woman, you.
Okay, now come on.
Say that.
Okay, come on. Okay. So I know you believe in aliens. So do you believe that they had something to do with that? Because you have a purpose, Andrea, honey.
I have no idea.
You have a purpose. There is a purpose for you. And we know we've talked about this before, because I've asked you, are you different from the rest of your family members? And you said yes, and you are. I'm like, we all know it. We've never heard anybody talk the way you do. I mean, it's unbelievable. You are so intelligent, and the way you speak is just incredible. I mean, I would die. I wish an alien would come to me and give me those gifts, because I would love to have what you have. So I know you have a lot going on, and you're going all these different ways, and you'll find what you have to do, and you may be going in that direction, but somebody is protecting you, but I don't know what it is. Do you believe in guardian angels?
Well, you just said a couple minutes ago, I believe in extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And I guess you could say I believe in ghosts and spirits. But it really, for me, belief is not the apropos word. I bypassed belief and went to certain knowing many decades ago. And I don't push any of it down anybody's throat. Everybody has their own truth. Everybody has their own foundation. We are all formed in fundamental ways and impacted by our childhood experiences. And these are things that stay with us lifelong. This is the truth of all of us. But I do know that there is something beyond our mortal existence. I've seen it with my own eyes. And I do know that there is an extraterrestrial presence not only around this planet, but on this planet. And I do know that.
I can't remember if I asked you this or not, but do you believe that we are a lower form of an alien?
I think we're a lower life form across the board. Across the board.
Okay.
We might as well be fire ants to them. Let's face it here, Noreen. We are, if we're supposed to be evolving, we're taking giant steps backwards all over the place. We had this discussion during our last interview, which was right after the election. I was in a hotel room that was more than a mile high. I was hyperventilating. I was so upset and crying. I was so upset that night. Oh my God, it was so awful. That was so awful. But anyway, I look back on what we've discussed and where we've gone with these issues, what we've talked about in terms of extraterrestrial and spiritual and what this means and what that means. But the truth of it is that none of us are going to know what any of it means until we're in that state of affairs. We've talked about the religious aspects of this, about, what the implications are for our planet. Paul Hellyer, the former defense minister of Canada, says that the aliens that he knows of have a belief system. There are people who believe that we worship the aliens, that Jesus Christ was actually a living, breathing manifestation, that he actually did come from divine intervention on behalf of humanity through a form of what they called immaculate conception, because he was an implant. Now, there are some people that would send them off the deep end, and then there are other people that think that that makes perfect sense. And I'm one of them. I'm one of them. I think that it's perfectly plausible that what we worship as God is another race that is so far advanced compared to us that we're like their children. In fact, Paul Hellyer said that in his last major interview. He said they looked down on us 60 years ago when we blew off the first big bomb that got their attention, and they said, oh no, the children are playing with matches.
Oh my God.
That's when they came en masse. That's when they came en masse, and they were much more visible, and consequently, there's been a slow, very gradual, extremely tediously gradual release of information and misinformation since the Roswell crash, which Paul Hellyer won't even discuss the Roswell crash. He said it is a foregone conclusion. Far too much evidence has been gathered. He has the inside track as a former defense minister of our closest neighbor, one of our best buds in the world. He had access to information that most people will never know about, never see. And he's spilling his guts at the age of 90 years old. He's telling all. I admire him more than I could possibly tell you. But the thing is that we talked about the last time, too, that I want to revisit, is, for me, the importance of the correlation and the integration. There is a point of integration. We live in a multi-dimensional universe. We do not live on a three-dimensional plane of action and a five-sensory world. We live in a multi-dimensional universe. There is stuff going on around us all the time. We create the veil. The veil is an illusion. We create the veil so that we can pretend that we live in a three-dimensional, five-sensory world because it's easier. It makes sense.
Can I ask
how many children have come out of their rooms in the morning and said, Mom, Grandma read me a bedtime story last night, and Mother says, I'm sorry, honey, your grandma died before you were born. It must have been a dream. It was your imagination. You've seen pictures of her. The child probably was telling the truth and had her grandmother read her a bedtime story and come and check on her.
Yep, exactly.
And that child is being told by the one penultimate authority figure in her life that she trusts with her life day in and day out, that what she saw was an illusion.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on that.
So we condition our youth in the same way that we were conditioned in youth to believe something that is extremely limiting about ourselves and our realm. We are a tiny little speck in a massive, unbelievably, unimaginably huge universe that is expanding exponentially. Mm-hmm. It is growing out. That is scientific fact. And, now that Hubble can take pictures from 30 years ago and compare them to the same spot in the sky now, mm-hmm. They see what's happening and how the universe is. We are moving at a rate of speed that if it were not for the gravity from the core of this earth that holds us on this planet, we'd pass each other in a split second. Mm-hmm. We would just literally implode out into space. Everything about life, everything about our existence is miraculous. Everything.
So, Andrea, do you think that the aliens that visit, that say they visit here, and those that have been abducted, do you believe that those aliens are coming out from outer space, or are they here on Earth? They're living here on our Earth.
I think it's both. And I wish that I knew more. I just recently did a lecture, and I'll send you a copy of the link for that, for my lecture that I did in Laughlin, Nevada, for the Star Wars Symposium last November. And I talked about that a lot because we don't know. There's so much that we don't know, but there's more to be known. There's more known than most human beings are privy to or have access to. But what I do know predominantly, I have had some absolutely incredible experiences in my life, not just with spirit. And I've told you before, since when I started writing the books, I had some incredible experiences in this house, to the extent that my sister Christine, who owns this house, put me up against a wall one day, and she said, "This house wasn't haunted until you moved into it."
Oh my God, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, she was not happy with me because of an incident that had occurred in the house, and and I'm sorry that they follow me around. It's not my fault. I'm just kind of a magnet for them. I have a tendency to skew investigations. I was born this way. I think. I don't know. I used to think that everybody could see everything if they tried, or if they were open to it, or if they pried wide open the third eye. And over time, I'm starting to wonder, as divisive as it might sound, I don't mean it to be, but I do think that there are those among us who are seers, who see what others do not. Mm-hmm. Because for us, the veil is non-existent. And I know that I am one of them, and I feel very privileged to have seen and experienced what I have in this life. Very privileged and deeply humbled by it. Because I'll tell you something, I have lived a fearless life because of it. A fearless life. From the age of 12, I wasn't afraid to die anymore.
Wow, no
kidding. And what liberation that is.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in youth.
Oh, well, a lot of young kids aren't afraid to die, but they have not gone through what you have gone through and seen what you have seen. Because I know you've seen spirit. I mean, you've actually seen full-bodied spirits.
Mm-hmm. I have repeatedly in my life, yes.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Now, I understand you're going to be writing another book.
I am writing another book.
Yep.
Right now with my partner in all things paranormal, Mr. George R. Lopez, who about 25 years ago had an idea pop into his head that he has been nurturing ever since, and this man is brilliant, let me tell you.
You're both brilliant. I mean, my God, the two of you together. I was just watching a conference that you had done. I periodically go through YouTube and look for your look for your conferences and listen to you speak. The problem is I can't always remember. That's why I would die to have what you have, because I can't always remember everything, but I just love hearing you speak. And you were talking about spiritualism. I don't even remember where you and George were, but you both had the floor and you were going back and forth. It was just awesome. Now I lost my train of thought. So is this book on aliens or what's it on?
No, actually. I can't really tell you what it's about, because if I tell you what it's about, it kind of gives everything away.
Okay.
So, but what I can tell you is that it's his idea, and he's written, just this great story that I have taken section by section and, reshaped and worked into a certain flow, and it's really a combination of both of us, but this really is at heart, it's his story. And what he came up with was a combination of fact and fiction, unlike anything I have ever seen before.
Oh my God.
Delving into history in a way I've never seen done before. And this is a very dark book, and it is going to freak out some of my readers who think they're getting a little bit more of House of Darkness, House of Light, when you're comparing apples and onions.
Oh my God.
Absolutely no comparison. This is the other end of the spectrum.
Is it nonfiction?
Part of it is nonfiction. Yeah.
After you get that book... Well, after you get that book published, you know where you're coming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
absolutely.
I thought...
And George, too. He'll join us.
Oh, okay. I'd love to have you both. I'll put you both up on Skype if you want to come on Skype.
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful. I can't wait.
Now, but you, the last time we talked, you were going to write a book about aliens and UFOs. What happened with that?
I know. I'm working on it.
Oh, okay.
Give me a chance. I'm only one person. I know, and I will. I mean, I had one of the most extraordinary experiences of my whole life on Christmas Day.
What happened?
It was just great. It was great.
Well, tell us.
Right here in little Podunk, Villarica, Georgia. Absolutely amazing. Oh my God, I felt like dropping to my knees. I was so grateful for what I saw.
Oh my God, what
so
happened?
Grateful.
What happened?
Come
on. Take a deep breath and tell us.
They don't come when called. You know how I say that over and over again? They don't come when called.
Yeah.
I want to talk to them. They don't come.
Yeah.
Well, this time they did.
Did you call them?
Yes.
No.
Yes. Just being nice, It was after gifts were opened, and what I did was I went out and I said, please don't make fun of me about this, but I went out and I said, if you're what I'm worshiping, if this is what this day is, the celebrations of this day is about, I just want you to know how much I love you and how it's changed my life. And I was just talking like this, all sweetness and light, and people would think that, that's a little nuts, but I'm very into Christmas, and I love Jesus, and, it's all very exciting to me. It's a great holiday and a great celebration, even though Jesus wasn't really born in December. And even though I don't affiliate with any single church, I have, really very deep abiding faith. And I was raised Roman Catholic, so I had a foundation of religious thought and fervor and belief and a sense of connection, which I think if religion really offers us anything, it offers us that. So anyway, I was just standing out in the carport. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'd had dinner, and I went outside to get some fresh air, and just like I'm doing right now, and I was looking up into the sky and over the tree line to the southwest of our property. A absolutely beautiful ship appeared after I was talking for a few minutes, and I looked at it and was like, am I seeing that right? Really? That clearly and that closely? Really?
You're talking about a UFO?
And there it was, and it was gorgeous. It was so beautiful, and the sky was so gorgeous. It was a mixture of sun and clouds, and the sun was starting to set, and it was like a soft, fuzzy gray, beautiful, long, slender. And then it just disappeared. And I'm staring right directly into the spot where it was. And I said, could you please come back? This can't be an optical illusion, what I just saw. I need you to come back. Let me just see you just one more time. Nobody's looking. They're all watching football, or they're all in turkey comas. Nobody's looking. Just come back. And it did.
Oh, my God. No.
Oh, and then it left again, at which point my heart was up in my throat, and I said, I have no right to ask. I have no right to ask, but please, one more time.
Oh, my.
And it was back three times.
Oh, my
it happened.
God.
And then I was so overwhelmed. I just walked in the house. I couldn't stop grinning. My face hurt from smiling so much. It was such a gift. Such a gift. Oh, it was beautiful.
Oh, my God. Hey, are you now? You know, we've talked about this before. I don't know if you've been abducted. You've had visitations, but you don't know either if you've been abducted.
I don't. I really don't. I do know that I've had a couple of episodes of lost time, brief periods of time while I was conscious that I cannot account for, and that just happened very recently, within the last few months.
Okay, so it's possible that you are having these visitations, but now, because the aliens, they do something to your mind because they don't want you to remember anything, because they don't want you talking about it. So,
well, I think that some of us are being downloaded with information that is going directly into our subconscious minds. I really do. I think that there's a method to the madness, and they know that our little human minds cannot absorb too much too soon. But I have just recently asked for conscious contact. That's what I want next.
Oh, my God. Will you please let me know? If you start having contact and conversations with aliens, oh, my God, please, I need to know. I know. Oh, my God. That would be so awesome. A lot of, like that Paul Schneider, who reported all these incidences at Dulce, the underground tunnels, what the horrific stuff that's going on down there, and that big firefight they had with the aliens. And when he came out public, well, you know what happened to him. He's not alive anymore.
I know.
So
I have to be very cautious and very careful about what I do, and I need to, be cognizant of the fact that there are multi-levels and multi-layers to this. I've already told you that I've been scrutinized, that I'm being monitored. I've had several incidents that indicate to me that I'm being watched, and it's because I'm shooting off my mouth. And I need to, George and I one of our little mottos for our radio show that we do together, A World Awakening, is every week we throw pebbles in the pond. And I told him a couple of months ago, I'm going back to get a boulder. Because apparently the pebbles aren't reaching, the shoreline, and I need to make some waves. And his immediate response to me was just, be careful, Annie, be careful.
Really? Oh, my God. So, this book that you're writing, it is about aliens, right?
No.
No, not with George, your other book.
No, the one I'm working on with George?
No, the other one. You're supposed to be writing another book, aren't you?
Well, yeah, I'm working. I got 3 things going at one time, honey. I do. I also have a follow-up piece about all the spiritual interaction that I had during writing the books, the 3 books, called Lessons Learned, Message Received.
Oh.
And that's just going to be a follow-up piece to the trilogy. Plus, I've got the abridged version coming out for all those, people that are just too, that just cannot wrap their mind around the trilogy. I'll just leave it at that. That just want a series of scary stories. So we're kind of smushing it down into a much more cohesive, much shorter read for those who prefer that. Let's put it that way. And, then I've got the book with George, which I would say we're more than halfway done with, and should finish up in the next couple of months. And then I'm going to start writing down some of my experiences. But, I'm also I'm posting some of those things publicly as well, but they keep mysteriously disappearing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. Hey, there's a question for you.
In the chat?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's from F Warrior. He wants me to ask you, what does Andrea think of Stephen Hawking's view on aliens?
Well, I think that Stephen Hawking is probably an alien. I think he's so brilliant that he does not even belong as a member of the human race. And I think that we should pay very close attention to everything that he says. But, he's really, over the course of time, has really wavered on this subject, too. So, I guess my question would be, which position did he take that you want me to respond to? Because he has taken several positions on this. The Pope has just taken a position on it.
Oh. Well, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That'd be fine. But first I want to, try to answer the question the best that I can. I mean, there was a time that Stephen Hawking, said basically, there's no conceivable way that we're alone in the universe. But then he's also come out with a couple of different statements over the years that he, doesn't believe that they're interacting with us. I don't know what exactly I'm being asked to comment on, but I do say that we should listen to everything and read everything that comes out of that incredibly brilliant mind. I look back on someone like Nikola Tesla, who brought free power to the entire world and was just squelched and left to die in poverty because of Mr. Westinghouse. I see that at least his intellect is honored, that Stephen is honored for what he brings to the world instead of shunned aside. So I guess in that respect, we have made some progress because, he is in a class with Einstein. He's in a class by himself, as far as I'm concerned. In the same way, in the spiritual community, Deepak Chopra is in a class by himself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so F Warrior is saying the one I heard is that he said aliens only mean humans harm. He hopes he'll never meet one, so he says.
Yeah, well, and you know what? He is absolutely entitled to that opinion. And the reason that he is entitled to that opinion is that there is some evidence that there are 57 species, races, I should say, that have been documented as having visited the planet. This according to Paul Hellyer. What I would say is that not all of them are benevolent. Not all of them are. I believe that there are a couple of races that have routinely made their presence known on this planet and have done harm to animals and have done harm to human beings without any care about pain inflicted or without any care of the outcome for that person.
I know.
Or that animal. And in the case of the animals, it almost always results in death. A gruesome, horrible death. There have been animal mutilations reported around the planet that are unlike anything that a wild animal would do or a human in their right mind would even conceive of.
So why do you think they're doing that?
I've seen some photographs of it myself, and it's extremely disturbing.
So, Andrea, what is their purpose of doing that? Of harming animals and humans?
Because it's most likely DNA experimentation or something akin to that. You know, it could just be a race that's come here and has said, you know, what is this? What are these? As they look at, you know, lowly us crawling around on this planet. I don't know. It's sheer speculation on my part. I wish that I did know. I hope that before I pass on that I do. And I must tell you that I feel truly honored to be among those worldwide who speak on this topic, who go out there and, no matter come what may, say their piece. I think of, you know, the brave souls such as Pell Harris, who is a close personal friend of mine. She has introduced me to people from all over the world who are doing the very best work in paranormal research, and of course ufology falls under that huge umbrella. She has had contact herself just recently in South America, and she's just beside herself about it, you know, because this is a woman who has devoted the last 30 years plus of her life to this research and has interviewed contactees all over the world, has interviewed the very top military people, has written numerous books on the subject. I find her absolutely inspiring. And through her, I have gotten to know people like Bob Brown and Steve Bassett. And, you know, I'm not going to start name-dropping here. All I can tell you is that I have had personal contact with people who are as in the know as it gets. And Jaime Maussan is another one that I will recommend that people go to his website. That they, you know, he's based in Mexico City, and he's got a group of people who bring in film footage captured from all over the world, and they dissect it, the best of the best of the best. If it makes it onto his website, if it makes it onto his Facebook page, anywhere on his web presence, then it's the real deal. And you will see things on that will blow your mind. You know, the long tubular fuzzy ships that I've described to you in the past?
Yeah.
He's got film footage of them diving directly into open, active volcanoes.
Oh, my God. No kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, I have another question from the chat. Edra Knight wants to know, does Andrea think she could be an ambassador for an alien race?
Oh my. Isn't that a provocative question? It's just so odd that I would even hear that question tonight after the conversation that I had with my dear friend Paul about 15 minutes before I got on the phone with you tonight.
Oh, really?
I dedicate this show to him. He is an experiencer with me, like me, and we've got a lot in common and have shared many stories. Yes. Let me put it to you this way. I will answer that question, yes. And the reason I'm going to tell you something now. You know, I don't know how many people out in paranormal cyberland are going to actually hear this. But I had an incident with Paul a few weeks ago. Actually, I should say Paul had an incident that involved visitation. And when this entity wrapped her arms around him, he said he closed his eyes and it felt exactly like I was hugging him. It was my hug. And he asked her name, and she touched a badge on her outfit, and the letters of her name rose up out of it, and it said Hudel. And she told him about me, and that she spoke with him about me. So he knew the connection between us was real. And he wrote to me after this experience, and it really shook him to the core. Even though he felt nothing but pure, saturating love from her, it still shook him. And he contacted me and he said, what can you tell me about Hadel? And my immediate response back to him in my little chat box was, how do you know that name?
Oh my God. And
that's when he told me what had happened, and that she had connected with him in a very profound way, and that there was some connection. He knew that there was some connection between the two of us. My experience with her is that I've been told through several different sources, conscious sources for people who have just walked up to me, people that I do not know, and have walked up to me to tell me that I am her emissary.
Wow.
I had the High Priestess of Nine Covens, Lady Morgana Avalon, amazing woman who I met a couple of years ago in Salem, Massachusetts. I was up there around Halloween time doing book signings and such. And she walked into a restaurant that I was sitting in and walked straight up to me and lifted me out of my chair. And we went over to a booth. She obviously wanted to speak to me immediately. She reached across the table and she took my hand and looked deeply, penetratingly into my eyes for a moment and said nothing. And then her eyes filled with tears and she said, "Thank God you're here to save the world."
No way. Oh my God. So what are you going to do with that?
Do you know how humbling that is to hear somebody?
I know. Andrea, what are you going to do with that?
I'm just one of many. I'm one of many. I'm not saying anything different than a multitude of other people are saying, Noreen. I'm just spreading the word. I'm doing my little humble messenger bit to spread the word the best that I can about spirit and love. You know, love is the answer to every single question there is. Love is the answer. If we are going to change this world for the better, if we are going to take control of an out-of-control life force on this planet, humanity is out of control. We have to go within. We have to be the light we seek. We have to get still and centered and listen to that voice within. That's the only way to open wide the third eye. It's the only way to tear down the invisible veil, to shred it, to literally be absorbed into the galactic family. And now there's a wonderful woman who did in her life 40 plus years of hypnotherapy with people who had experiencers, contactees. And she was getting the same message from them all over and over and over again as she would take them back, regress them back to their experiences, and do hypnosis on people who some didn't even know that they had been contacted.
Right.
And the messages were all coming back over and over. The woman wrote a multitude of books, and the message that she was getting consistently back through countless clients was, we are all being very closely watched, that this is the happening spot in the universe right now, that the transformation, the transition of the consciousness of the race called human beings is so dramatic that it's the best show going on in the universe, and they're coming from far and wide to watch and see if we are going to ascend or if we are going to blow ourselves to smithereens.
My God. God.
They've got ringside seats from every conceivable angle on this earth. And all we need to do is pull our faces out of the smartphones that they gave us the technology to create and start looking up. Look up. Pay attention up. Because that's what's going on. That's what's happening. And if you are open to it, people ask me all the time, how can I have a connection with spirit? How can I have contact, extraterrestrial contact? How can I have any kind of contact? And it's the most simple answer in the world. Ask.
But
Want
Andrea,
it? Say so. You want it, it will happen.
Okay. I'm really bothered about something, and I can't think about it because it just tears me up so much. They call us a human race, but what these other countries are doing is just horrific. What they're doing to animals and to humans, killing babies and raping and killing women, and torturing. And they think nothing of what they do to animals means absolutely nothing to some of these people in these other countries.
Absolutely nothing. I know, but you know what?
Apart.
It's not just them, it's us too. It's us too. There are atrocities happening all over the world. There are manifestations of evil occurring all over the world. And you know, I talked to you about this the last time, and I really do believe that we are in the midst of a shift, a holy shift. We are in the midst of ascension. I think the Mayans got it exactly right. Their calendar brought us to the end of the Piscean age, and we are in the age of Aquarius. We are squarely now with the water bearer, and the thing that we need to understand is that we are the solution. We are the solution. Because if we're not the solution, then we're the problem. I know that's an old adage, but it's absolutely true. If we are doing our own work by changing ourselves individually and being as kind and loving to others as we possibly can, then with each positive thought that we put out into the world, that's throwing a pebble in the pond. Every good, kind, generous, sweet, loving thing that we do with our lives changes the energy. It shifts the energy. You know, I used to believe there was one and only one way to rid this earth of its pestilence. And you know, do I want ISIS blown to smithereens? Yes, I do. Mm-hmm. All right, I just have to tell you that. I think that they are subhuman. I think that they should be blasted back to the Middle Ages where they came from. You know, the feminine energy shift is what's happening on this planet, and we are taking over. Because the fact of the matter is, and there is no disputing it, there's no rational disputing it, the fact is, men are the destroyers and women are the nurturers and the protectors. It's not true 100% of the time. There are women terrorists. There are men who, you know, raise babies and love them dearly and, you know, are totally into the mommy feminine thing. You know, there's all kinds. It takes all kinds to make the world. But the truth of the matter is that the vast majority of violence, violent acts, and violence against women and children and animals comes at the hands of men. They are the power mongers. They are the war mongers. They are the ones that create the weapons and use the weapons, the vast majority. And something's got to happen on this earth, and I know it's coming. It's coming, that will make their jaws drop and make them drop their weapons. Something that is so important to all of mankind that suddenly all of mankind feels like one race again. We are so distinct and so separated, and so I look at the manner of violence around this globe because of religion. Think of the Crusades, the countless millions. Think of the countless millions of women and some men that were burned alive because someone dared to say that's a witch or a warlock. Just use the word and color them gone. You know, we are a barbaric global society. We have the death penalty in this. And, you know, there are people that I think absolutely stick a needle in their vein. They're taking up valuable oxygen. You know, Ted Bundy, people like that. Jeffrey Dahmer, sayonara.
Yeah.
We didn't belong here in the first place. You know, there are manifestations of evil all over this planet. And we have to be the spiritual warriors. I mean, this is something, you have to take sides. There is no sitting on the fence here. You have to take sides. You're either for good or you're for evil. If you support ISIS, if you support Al-Qaeda, if you support terrorists of any and all persuasion, and there are plenty of them. We have some, I think, in our own government that were willing to torture other human beings regardless of whether or not they had any evidence against them. You know, I mean, we're dealing with this right on the home front here. We're the only nation on the earth that dropped the bomb. We called them here. We did. America.
Yeah.
You know, we have to face the truth about humanity. And if there's going to, you know, it's really not a nationalistic thing. At this point, you know, we're killing our planet. We're killing it. We're suffocating it. We're poisoning it. And consequently poisoning ourselves. We're the only animal that lives on this planet that fouls its own nest. Now, if we don't make a change, if we don't accept the fact that, do you understand why I was so upset that those who think global warming is a hoax just took over Congress? You know, the Keystone Pipeline is something that we have to talk about and seriously consider. You know, we have issues of penultimate importance going on this planet, and we're taking one giant step back after another. We're moving in the wrong direction for what we need to accomplish, and we don't have forever. You know, my sense of urgency is real. It's compelling. Sorry, I had to cough.
Oh, that's okay.
My throat gets dry after a while, you know. It's that occasional breathing that I do.
Oh my God, Andrea, holy cow. Oh God. It's fascinating having you on. The viewers absolutely just love you. We had almost 100 in chat tonight. It was awesome.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Give them all a big fat kiss for me. Do you have those icons that kiss each other?
I don't know how to do it, but they can hear you. They can hear you.
Tell them in chat to put out kissing icons all over the chat box.
They can hear you.
I love them. I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Oh, God, it was huge.
Sweet.
Oh, my God.
Does anybody have any other questions? You can get me off of my ET and global warming soapbox for just a little while and send me off on another tangent. You know, feel free. I'll talk about anything. You know me.
I know. Oh my God. So, you know, after you write those 2 books, and anytime you want to come on the show and vent and talk about whatever, my God, you have the open floor on my show. Always.
You are
you
so
know
sweet.
that.
I could just,
But, you know, I mean,
I'm sending you a cyber hug. I am. I hope you feel it. I really do, because I give the best hugs. Ask anybody who I've ever hugged.
You guys are having that conference. Oh my God!
I'm so excited about it. I am so thrilled. I wanted to bring it up sometime during the show tonight. You know, I know most of your listeners are California swamis. You know, I know that.
No.
Freaks and mystics
Andrea,
all went to the West Coast. I love you all.
Andrea. Most of my viewers are from the East Coast.
No kidding.
Yeah,
really?
I don't have anybody from the West Coast.
Oh my God! See, I thought it was the opposite. Well, that's very cool because all my East Coasties, there, are, I'm one of them. We all fit together so well. We're such Yankees, but I so don't belong in Georgia. I really don't. I'm going to Florida. I'm moving to Florida very soon.
Oh.
I need to be where the Yankees are.
Oh my God! Why? Oh, hey, Dave Dave Spinks says hi, and he'll see you next week.
Oh, God, I just love him to pieces.
Oh.
Dave is going to be joining me along with George Lopez, John Zappas, Scott Tepperman, Steve DeShavi. Oh, my God, the list goes on and on. Dave, start writing them into the chat box. We're all getting together at the Seven Sisters Inn for a small, very intellectual Paracon on the 23rd, 24th, of January in Ocala, Florida. Maria Schmidt and her wonderful husband Bob are hosting this event. George is going to be the MC because he's got the deepest voice. Stacy Jones is going to be there with us. Oh my God, we've got such a lineup. Maria and Bob have gone overboard making this the premier event in January anywhere in this country. So I encourage everybody, if you can get down there. I know she's sold out on some events, but we're going to be there all weekend long. We're not going anywhere, so no matter what, people will, be there to interact with all of us and meet, the John Zappas, the Godfather.
Oh, God.
Oh, he's such a dog.
Oh,
I just love him to pieces.
I know.
And we always make mischief when George and I are with John. All bets are off.
Oh.
It's just, I can't explain it. We just kind of untap the potential of the other two, I guess is the best way to put that. The energy just flows and the laughter. I was just saying this to a friend of mine today. I said, we are an amazingly cheerful lot.
Oh, God.
Para people are just filled with light and love and laughter and enthusiasm, which seems so counterintuitive to the fact that we're all obsessed with death.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. We know how to celebrate life. We do, because many of us have seen the dark side, and we have made a conscious choice to live in the light, and that's why we're so happy.
First of all, Callie, Virginia, who was she's a psychic. She says, tell Andrea that she is a wonderful, warm spirit, and that I am honored to be able to be in her presence tonight. They all love you.
Bless your heart, sweetie. Thank you. I am honored by you, too. We're having a namaste moment right now.
Hey, are you going to be speaking anywhere? Well, this is the upcoming. Is there anywhere else that coming up for you where you're going to have speaking engagements or lectures?
Well, after this big event in Florida, and it's actually several events because we're also filming what I anticipate will be a very intense investigation at Kerr City in the Ocala National Forest. It's an old ghost town, and it's extremely active. It was George's training ground when he became an investigator eons ago. He's had numerous captures there and incidents there. So we're going with Les Anderson, my producer, and we're filming a documentary the day after we're done at the Seven Sisters, and Bob and Maria, I believe, are coming with us. It should be a very, very interesting event. And then I think I'm probably going to just cool out with my dad for a couple of days down in Winter Garden, and then head back up to Georgia, pack up some more stuff. I've been one truckload at a time bringing my stuff down to Florida and filling my father's beautiful house with boxes and boxes and boxes of my stuff. And, just because I need to get down, I need to be where George is, where Les is, where the people that I work directly with all the time, in their general vicinity. So that's the plan for the spring. And then George and I are heading up in April to Phenomicon in York. I believe it will be in York, Pennsylvania. Anybody that's interested in knowing about Phenomicon, it is one of the best events that's hosted all year long. Chris and Dana Wingard, Wingerd, or ARD. You can find them on Facebook, but that's their event. And then they're also doing another event later in the year that we'll be doing Paranormal Disney World. And we'll be down in Orlando for that.
Wow.
And I don't know the dates on that, but Dana can tell anybody what the dates are and what the arrangements are for that. I also imagine that I will be at least one more Star Works symposium over the course of the next year, and my agent has a number. George and I share an agent, and with John and a number of other people in the paranormal field, and so we have no idea what he's going to come up with for us over the course of the coming year. But I do believe that sometime in August I'll be up in Michigan, up in the Upper Peninsula, to do a thing with Tim Shaw, I believe. There are a number of events that I'll be at, but what I do is I ask people to just, I'm full boat on friends on my personal Facebook page, but they can follow me there, and if it'll allow them, they can send me a friend request, and when I have openings, I just add my new people when I have openings. Every couple of days or so, somebody will drop off or close their page or just get sick of me. Wow, I thought she was talking about ghosts, and now she's talking about ETs, and oh my God, who knows why they leave? They leave. And I scare them away. I don't know. But either way, I certainly welcome them. I think I have the coolest page in Facebook history.
You do.
Certainly one of the most beautiful. I managed to find all the most beautiful photography and artwork and poetry and music, and just slather it on there so that people have a nice, soft place to just go to and click on my wall and just read and get caught up in the ambiance of it. And I invite everybody to follow me there. And also on my I put different things on my book and author page, which is under House of Darkness, House of Light. And I also have a third page for the show, A World Awakening. And they can find me and follow me there with George on Facebook as well. Facebook is the official home of the paranormal. There is not a paranormal team in the world that doesn't have a Facebook page. So if you want to hang with paranormal people, all you have to do is hook up with them on Facebook, and you can. I have been added to at least 100 groups. Nobody ever asked me. All of a sudden, I'm like, you belong to this group. Oh, that's great. I look at it like, hey, that's a way to meet new people. That's great. No problem here. I love it. It's been wonderful. And, yes, I use it for business. Of course, I book a lot of interviews and things like that. People find me there and then contact me. And it's brought a great deal of opportunity. I do a lot of book sales over the Internet, sending inscribed copies and such. And so it's been very valuable to me in that respect. But the real value of it for me is the interaction. I mean, honest to God, 7 years ago, I didn't know if anybody was going to even be interested in our story. I didn't know there was a paranormal community when I started writing these books. It was certainly not something that I had followed or latched into in any way, shape, or form over the decades since we had left the farm. All of my spiritual work was internal. All of it. I didn't discuss anything with anyone, not even my closest friends, about the farm. I mean, my very best friend, my essay, there's a whole chapter in Volume 3 that's just personal essays from every member of the family. And my essay was about keeping secrets and the necessity to do that and the liberation of telling the truth. And it talks a lot about my dear friend Susie Fiore, who I have known since 1976. And it wasn't until 2007 that I told her that I was living at the farm in a haunted house when I was in college. And she's like, did you not trust me with this information? She was really hurt and offended that something this important, this fundamental to my development as a human being and to my spiritual development was not something that I ever chose to share with her. And she perceived herself to be my closest friend and vice versa. So how could I not tell her this? And it was in the process of her lambasting me and wanting every detail of what had happened when I finally was forthcoming with her. I remember it like it was yesterday, sitting on the sofa in my little cottage in Harmony, Rhode Island on Waterman Lake and looking out the front window. And it was August, and I was sitting there telling her this story from start to finish. And in the process of doing that, I can't tell you how many memories just bubbled to the surface. And as I'm sitting there, and it took about 3.5 hours to give her the abridged version of what happened over the course of those 10 years.
Oh my God.
And I took notes all the time that I was talking to her.
Wow.
And that was what I began the book with.
Now, aren't they making another movie out of your story?
Well, we're in negotiation. I've got a couple of irons in the fire around that, and I'm not willing to make a mistake, so I'm not willing to jump in.
Oh, good, Andrea. I want them. We would love to see on screen the real story of the Perron family's haunting. We would love to see that. Your story is so different from The Conjuring, and your story is an awesome story.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen. There's no question in my mind. I've got a couple of, I really can't say too much about it, but what I can tell you is that this is ongoing, that I'm talking with people that make things happen. And I'm not trying to, create any kind of a bidding war or anything like that. The last thing on earth that I am is a greedy woman. But I do want to make sure that my family is properly compensated, because the first time around, that's a film that made almost $500 million, and we got none of it. None of it.
Get out of here. You guys didn't make any money off of that?
No, well, we were paid for the use of our names and likenesses, which was industry standard.
Oh.
No, I don't go throwing the number around. But
I already...
Shocked.
Oh, my God.
Shocked.
Oh, man. That's a crime. Now, could you have asked them for residuals, like when they... well, you could have gotten a percent, couldn't you, out of
Honey,
each...
if I told you the story of what happened, I think you would just pass out.
Oh,
you would
yeah.
just fall down.
Oh.
You would be so upset that you'd never get over it. And so I don't share it with anybody. What I can tell you is what we were promised is not what happened. There was... we got eaten alive.
Oh my!
We got eaten alive, and through some questionable lawyering. When you're dealing with big Hollywood movie studios, things happen, and I was not in a position to go to court to rectify it. It would have cost me $100,000 or more to challenge what happened.
Oh my God. Oh.
Originally, we were supposed to, here's the thing. We signed one contract, and the countersigned document came back to me changed, altered.
How can...
And there was nothing I could do about it because I didn't have the money to fight them.
Oh, Andrea. Oh, my God. Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Oh, I would... Oh.
It's a lot of money.
Oh, my God, I know. Oh, my God, that movie was #1, and oh, my God, everybody was going to the movies. They made a ton of money. You're absolutely right.
Well, don't worry. Believe me when I tell you I'm being very careful, thoughtful, and deliberate about who gets permission to make the trilogy into a film, and there will be very precise stipulations, and I now have one of the best media attorneys in the world, and I'm so grateful to have her represent me, and believe me when I tell you she won't let it happen.
Oh.
She won't let it happen again.
Oh, thank God. Because when your story is made into a movie, it's going to be huge. It'll probably be bigger than The Conjuring because your story is amazing.
Because it's actually, I think it's way more phenomenal
Oh, yeah.
It's far more believable. This wasn't a horror story. It was a spiritual journey, and if it is made true to form, true to the experience, yes, there will be moments that are horrifying. Yes, there will be, but that's not the gist of it. The gist of it is that we stayed long enough to make our peace, to come to terms of endearment, to acknowledge the spirits. That's what they wanted. They wanted integration. They wanted to be able to share space with us, and for us to be willing to let that happen, because it was their house first. And when we learned about how important it was to them to be there, it seemed to me that the last thing that any of us had a right to do was to send them on or dispel them, maybe to where they belonged. Who's to say where they belonged? Maybe they are exactly where they belong.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
We all have our own journeys, and they do too. Yeah, and we meddle and we provoke. There are so many paranormal researchers and investigators whose ink isn't even dry on their freaking T-shirts yet, and they're declaring themselves the end-all, be-all salvation to anybody that thinks they have a haunting in their house. And they walk in the house, and the first thing that they say is, "There's a demon in this house." You don't know what a demon is. What are you talking about, you idiot?
Oh my God, Andrea, I am so there with you. So there with you. I disagree with paranormal groups being allowed into homes. The only person I would, we had talked about this before. Oh, I had talked about this with somebody else. I think it was Bill Bean. It's getting to the point where there's so many of these groups. They've caused so much harm to families. And then all these exorcisms, and Bill Bean and other professionals all have to come in and take care of what they screwed up in somebody's home.
I know Bill and I talked about that in Gettysburg last year. We had a long conversation about that. We are on exactly the same page. Other people have to come in and clean up the mess afterwards.
Exactly, and it should not be allowed. I believe, because there's so many people in this, and a lot of them are just doing it for fun. They think this is fun to get EVPs and all this stuff. It's not. It's it's very dangerous.
It is, and they have no idea what they're messing with.
I
know. They
know.
have no idea what the ramifications could be. I have seen what the ramifications can be with my own eyes. I thought I saw my mother die.
Oh my God.
I mean, honest to God, there's just no way to tell you anything more serious than that.
Now, see, you had Keith Johnson. He was young. But Keith Johnson came in, and he knew it was something he couldn't handle, and he called in the Warrens.
Yeah.
And turned it over to the proper people.
Yep, and they were in over their heads immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately. There was, they had, ultimately they created more harm than good, and they didn't mean to.
Yeah.
I really believe they didn't mean to. They were there with the right intentions. They were there to try to help us. But, and I know that Ed and Lorraine Warren, excuse me, get down, bad kitty.
Oh, no kitties are bad.
Oh, no, this one's bad. He's eating the hell out of Bonnie Blue Eyes tonight, Percival. Being bad. Chasing her around the house, and they're screaming. If you hear any cats screaming,
I did.
Percival jumping on Bonnie Blue Eyes. It's not right, and he's the only boy in the house, and he's about to get a spanking. With a pillow that scares the bejesus out of him. There he goes. But no, what was I saying? Anyway, yeah.
The Warrens.
I've talked to Bill Bean about this. I've talked to many people in the paranormal community. There are very, very few people who I would trust to go into a residential setting, especially if there is a crisis ongoing. And one of them would be Keith Johnson, and another one would be Ken DaCosta and Rise Up Paranormal from Rhode Island. There's just nobody better. They've got the tightest, most erudite team going. People who have been doing this for decades, people who are extremely well-versed in virtually every aspect of the paranormal. And Ken, as the leader at the helm, Ken DaCosta is one of my closest friends, and he is one of the, you must have him on your show. He will blow your mind. He will blow your mind. He's a true Renaissance man. He really, like George. He's very much like George in that respect. Extremely well-rounded, extremely worldly in his experiences and what he has studied. And he, I would trust to go into virtually any situation. Keith, I would trust to go into any situation. Mm-hmm. But there are a handful, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of paranormal investigative research teams that have sprouted up like weeds all over the landscape who don't know anything. And the reason that they even came into existence is because they got the cutest, most good-looking people together that they could muster from the neighborhood and created a paranormal team so that they can try to get their own show. And, you know, and there's just nothing more repulsive to me than that. I mean, that's being in it for all the wrong reasons. You know, I will give something to Ed and Lorraine Warren. They were doing this before it was popular. They were doing this before it was anything that anybody even wanted to talk about. When the subject was so taboo that they were shunned in their own community, they put everything on the line to do their work. Everything. And there was never any talk of there being any charge. And you know how many teams now, you know, say, oh, yeah, we'll come in and, yeah, it'll be $500 and we'll do an investigation. But if we find anything that needs to be dispelled, it'll be an extra $1,000. Oh. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But, you know, you get to charge that kind of money if you're a medical doctor. You get to charge that kind of money if you're a professional. There is nobody in this field that is a professional paranormal researcher. It is not a profession. It's not something you'd get a degree in. It's not something that comes with anything but self-education through experience. This is not something that, you know, if you want to do this, you better be willing to pony up and do it for all the right reasons, and that is to help other people. And that's it. That's the only good reason to do it. The only one. Not because you're going to get a show on Sci-Fi.
I know. Everybody wants to be on TV.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I mean, oh, my God. Oh, God, I got my soapbox back out again. You know, the thing that drives me craziest, I have to tell you, is the way that some women in the paranormal represent themselves and misrepresent all the rest of us by proxy, because impressions are left. And when the men in the field think that all the women in the field are floozies in low cut, you know, wearing nothing, leaving nothing to the imagination, with a big fat "It's free for the taking" written in neon on their forehead. Yep. All that does is undermine all the serious work. There are ladies in this community, and I'm one of them. And so is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, and I can name off dozens and dozens of women who are serious investigators, who are doing great work. Alexandra Holzer's one of them. You know, I mean, people who are, Amy Bruni, people who are out there because they know that we're all in this together. And these are women who really care about their field. And then you have what we all affectionately call the para-whores.
Yes, I've
and
seen
they're
it.
out there to go from one gathering to the next, to see what quote-unquote celebrity paranormal person they can bed down for the weekend. And it makes me sick.
Yeah, I've seen it. I know exactly what you're talking about. They think flaunting their bodies and making pictures so they look like 16-year-olds, and it's disgusting. It's so
embarrassing. And not only am I embarrassed because it's not something I want to see, and I've never been exposed to women like this in my life prior to coming into the paranormal world, into the community, into these events that are given around the country. But it's, you know, I'm embarrassed for them that they have such low self-esteem that they have to lead with their boobs instead of their brains.
Yep.
That is very, very unfortunate.
That's right.
And if it doesn't change, then all they're going to do is just fall by the wayside when the boys get bored with looking at them and there's a whole new crop that comes in. But it doesn't accomplish anything. It doesn't forward the field in any conceivable way. All it does is diminish and sexualize all women in the eyes of the men that we have to work with. That's all it does.
I love you for saying that. That is so awesome, Andrea. I didn't know you felt that way too. That is awesome.
I can't imagine any sensible person feeling any other way. Sorry, I just don't. I mean, it's just, I'm so humiliated for them. Oh my God. Oh my God, really? Really? Because they have strip clubs for stuff like this, you know? Go be with the lowlifes. Go be there. Don't do this. Don't embarrass me when I'm standing in front of, three little girls and you come strolling down with everything hanging out. Oh my God. I had an experience in Lexington, Kentucky at Scarefest where I had three young girls, 14, 15 years old, that had come with their mothers because they wanted to meet me. And I had all three of them over at my table, and I remember some woman walking by who was, I don't know, I guess I could say her costume was beyond revealing. And I grabbed those girls and I wrapped them into my arms and I pulled them up close to me and I turned them around so that they couldn't see her when she walked by, because I had this instinct, almost this mother nurturing thing to protect them so that their eyes wouldn't bleed. And then I took that opportunity to tell them that they are who they are and that they are the future of this movement, and that I have great confidence within them that they will grow to maturity and have great self-respect for what they do and for what their interests are, that they can do anything that they want with their lives, and that it's all about their brains and it's all about what they bring to the world in terms of their sensitivity and their maturity and their self-awareness and their understanding. They know that this is a difficult world to live in, and that the choices that you make matter. Every single choice that you make matters. And I talked to them at length about this, and these three girls now are follow me on Facebook, and we talk from time to time. I talked to them on Christmas Eve. They were all together on Christmas Eve, and just to let them know, to support and to nurture the youngsters that are coming into this, because when we're long gone, they're going to be the ones that are doing the work. They're going to be the ones. They are the future, and if this is what they're seeing, at these events, and then they begin to emulate that, then they're part of the problem and not the solution. And so it was incumbent upon me to, at least knowing that what I said to them had, gave them pause and had some influence on them, it was important for me to say the right thing to them about who they are as individuals, and never let anyone, particularly any man, diminish you in any way, or take advantage of you in any way. You be strong, you stand up for yourself, you stand on your own 2 feet, you be your own person, and then all good things will come to you. And I thought that was an important message to impart to these young ladies, and they are young ladies. They're lovely, and their parents are lovely, and they're what's right with the world.
Yeah.
And I don't want them tainted.
I agree. I so agree with you. Oh my gosh. Well, honey, 2 hours.
No, I'm sorry. It's only been 10 minutes, so I don't know what's wrong with your clock.
Oh my God, Andrea, I just love you to death. Hey, you have a wonderful time next week. I know Dave is so excited. We talk about the trip, and oh my God, he just loves all of you. And I know you've been really, really great with Dave, and he's just a wonderful guy. Just a wonderful guy, and sincere and honest, and I just love him like I love you guys.
I love Dave. He's just as good as gold. True true blue.
Oh yeah, he's a true country boy, and I love his voice because I love Blake Shelton on The Voice, and Dave talks just like him. So I just pretend I'm talking to what's his name, Blake Shelton. I pretend that's who I'm talking to. I hope you don't hear that, Dave.
He is. Dave's one of the good guys. Let's put it that way. And they're too few and far between. But I'll tell you what, when it comes down to, being on an investigation and counting on somebody to have your back, he's right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. I'm hoping to have. John Zaffis. I would love John Zaffis to come on with Dave and talk about their experience at this house that they were at. But that's going to be a while down the road. But I listened to your show with you and George, and then you bring Keith Johnson in, and then you bring Zaffis in, and it is just. I just love when all you guys get together. I just absolutely love all you guys. I love it.
Well, we're very proud of A World Awakening. It has been, we're coming up on our first year anniversary in about 3 weeks, and I'm very excited about that. But I'll tell you, it is a real blessing for me. This was an idea that spontaneously generated at about 4 o'clock one morning when George and I had been on the phone. I don't know how many hours, because we never run out of stuff to talk about. We just don't. And we went through a period of time over a course of a couple of months, I guess, where almost every night we would spend 2, 3, 4 hours on the phone talking about everything, not just paranormal stuff, just life, everything. And that was our opportunity to really, really get to know each other. And one night I said to him, as I was literally falling asleep on the sofa, and I said, George, I wish that we had recorded this conversation because this is something that I think other people would have really benefited from. And he said we should do a show, and I said, okay.
Wow.
And that was it.
Oh, yeah.
The World Awakening was born. We had the name the next day. 3 weeks later, we were up and running.
Yeah, it's an amazing show. I go in. I don't always get into chat, but I listen to you. I listen to your show.
Thank you.
I love you guys. And as always, I love you, Andrea. Maybe someday we'll meet in person. Maybe
We will.
Yeah. I'm hoping that, that would be awesome to meet all you guys. And I want to thank you so much again for coming on my show. And anytime, like I said, you want to come on, you're always welcome. Anything you want to talk about, it's open. The floor's open for you. Okay?
Oh, bless your heart, sweetheart. Thank you so much. It really is always inspirational for me. You have a way of opening up my heart and causing my mouth to say things that I just couldn't say in any other venue. I just wouldn't. No, it is because of this openness that we share, this sisterhood that we share, that's so comfortable and so safe. And I truly love you, Noreen. I truly do.
Andrea, thank you so much. I don't always get on your Facebook page and send you messages and all this little stuff that that is done on your Facebook page, but I love you. And you may not hear from me all the time, but I love you.
Well, you don't hear from me either because we're both doing our good work. We both know that we're doing our good work. And when we touch base and we get back together, it's like no time has passed at all. And that's part of the definition of true eternal friendship.
Thanks, Andrea. Thank you so
You're welcome.
much. Thanks, honey. Well, anytime you want to come back on, let me know. I'm always here for you, okay?
Okay, I sure will. And next time, I might bring some of my friends.
Oh, God. Oh, I'll put you up on Skype. That would be so awesome. I'd love that.
I know. It would be great. We'll be in touch.
Oh.
I will message you personally. We'll make some arrangements around that, okay?
Thanks, honey. Good night. Thank you.
I love you. Good night,
Love
sweetheart.
you.
Good
Love
night.
you.
Thank you to all your listeners. Thank you.
Love you. Good night.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, God, guys. I love Andrea. She's just, so awesome. Absolutely awesome. And she's a genuine, good-hearted person. So I hope you enjoyed the show. I mean, it's always a pleasure having Andrea on. And so, guys, well, oh my gosh, so many people are in here. There's new people too. Hey, you know, if you haven't given my show a like, would you please give the show a like? And I see new people in here. If you like the show, I have a show every Thursday. It's live, never recorded, and please subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. And guess what? Next week now is the Skinwalker Ranch, and then the following week I have 2 shows. On the 29th, I have Willie Windwalker Gibson. He is a Cherokee Native American. He is a shaman, and he is an alien abductee, and after that he was gifted the powers of seeing and speaking to spirits. Now he was the first one to actually do a live show. It was in 2004 with CMT. They did a Halloween special. And he was the first one to do a live show and go into the cave at the Bell Witch. The Bell Witch Cave. And so we're going to do a show on that next, on the 29th. That should be a good show. And also I want to talk with him about the American Indian beliefs about interdimensional beings as well. And then that Saturday, I have a show on the 31st with Harvey Althouse. He is a remote viewer. And guess what? Remember that show that we did a couple weeks ago with Krista on the Clinton Road? I contacted Harvey and I said, "Hey Harvey, I know you're coming on the show on the 31st." I said, I need you to do something for me. On this Clinton Road, there's that castle. The Cross Castle, if that even really is the name. And there's no information on that. And we are dying to find out information on that castle. Why was it built? Who built it? What's the story on that? And is it true about the occult and blah, blah, blah? Because this mansion, it was beyond a mansion. It was a castle, 42-room castle. Now, what the heck would he need with a 42-room castle out in New Jersey? And so anyway, Harvey called me yesterday. He goes, "Hey, Noreen, I got good news for you. I have someone that is on the council in New Jersey, and he owes me a favor, and he is checking in this information for me to see what we can get." And so when he comes on the 31st, any news that we get on that castle, I will bring it to you live on that show. And he's also going to do some drawings, because that's what he's, besides being a remote viewer where he can go in and go to a location from the past, he can also do drawings, and I've seen them. And he also did a drawing with who he believes is the Valeska axe murderer. So, I mean, that's going to be a fun show. Now, also in February, do you guys want to know what I'm doing in February for you? On February 5th, I'm having Anita, Joe, and Tenzo. They were just on The Haunting. And Anita, her son, and Bill Bean will be on that show. Now, February 11th is a Wednesday. My guest can't come on a Thursday, so it's Richard Spence, and we're going to talk about Aleister Crowley. On February 19th, Day at Love Pass with Paul Eno. On the 26th, this is going to be so awesome. I have Deanna Simpson. She is the Hanover haunting, demonic haunting. I don't know if you remember the story, but what's going on in chat? Hey guys, stop. Stop, please. She's the one that was on the news where this cameraman was sitting at her kitchen table and he was actually attacked on camera. And she wants to come on the show and she's going to tell her story. So I'll wait till next week to tell you. I'm booked all the way through up to May, so I've got some really good shows for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the show tonight. I don't like what I see, what's happening in chat. This really upsets me. Guys, please. We've had the most awesome chat ever. Nobody's ever had a fabulous chat room like we have. And I'll have to look back and look and see what's happening, because it's going by so fast I can't see. Please, everyone, please respect everyone. Please let's all get along. You come here to watch my show. I hope that's why you're coming as well. And bringing you these fabulous guests that I have for you. It's a lot of work for me to put these shows on. And all I ask is that you guys respect one another and chat. That's all. It just breaks my heart to see anything going on. So please stop. You know, like I said, I do a lot of work to bring these shows. A lot of work. Okay, we'll have to talk about the chat. I'll talk about it. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Please stop fighting. We'll get this straightened out. We'll get it straightened out. Okay. Well, everyone, I'm going to say goodnight. I'm really upset now. So I'm going to say goodnight to you guys. And hopefully we can get this straightened out before next Thursday. Please. Please, you guys. Please respect one another. Please. All right. I'll see you guys all on Thursday. Good night, everyone. And thank you so much for being here. I'm upset. I can't even do shout-outs. I'm really upset. So I'll see you guys all on Thursday. Good night, everyone. And again, thank you so much for being here. I love you guys. Thank you. Good night.